My caregiver hit me when no one was looking and no one believed me, so I let the bruises speak for me. My name is Delilah Moore. I'm 76 years old. And for 3 months I was beaten, humiliated, and gaslighted in my own home by the woman my daughter hired to take care of me. Every time I spoke up, they told me I was confused, that it was the stroke talking, that I was imagining things. But I wasn't confused. I wasn't helpless. And by the time they realized the truth, it was already too late. Before I begin, thank you for listening to my story. Let me know in the comments where and what time you're tuning in from. It means more than you know. It reminds me that I'm not alone in this. And if you'd like to share your story with me, feel free to email it. I'll drop my email in the description below. Now let me tell you what really happened. I knew something was wrong the second my daughter, Rhonda Wells, pulled out of the driveway. She had just dropped off Kayla Sims, the new caregiver she hired to help around the house while I recovered from my stroke. Rhonda's tone had been cheerful like always. "Kayla's highly recommended, Mama," she said. "She's worked with elderly stroke patients, knows how to handle medications, and she even volunteered with Meals on Wheels." I smiled, nodded, and watched her drive off with a wave. But the moment her car disappeared, everything changed. Kayla, a woman in her early 40s with glossy braids and long painted nails, dropped the smile she'd been wearing for Rhonda like a mask hitting the floor. She exhaled loudly, rolled her eyes, and walked right past me, bumping my shoulder hard enough to jolt my balance. I stood there with my walker, gripping the handles as if I had imagined it, but deep down my stomach had already twisted. She didn't say a word, just stomped into the kitchen and started banging cabinets. The woman Rhonda thought was a compassionate professional had flipped like a switch. I stayed silent. At 76 years old, I'd learned how to read people quick, and this woman was not safe. My name is Delilah Moore. I've lived in this house since the 80s. My late husband Harold and I raised our only daughter here, planted those magnolias out front, built every corner with our own hands. A few months ago I had a minor stroke. Nothing too dramatic, but enough to slow me down. Rhonda, bless her, meant well. She works full-time and has 2 kids, so she couldn't be here every day. That's why she hired Kayla. But what Rhonda didn't realize was that the woman she invited into my home was not a helper. She was a predator. The signs came quick. At first, Kayla ignored me when I asked for water or help reaching something. She left me waiting in the bathroom for nearly 20 minutes once. I told Rhonda about that, but she brushed it off. "Maybe she didn't hear you, Mama. You know your voice gets soft sometimes." Then came the first real blow. It was the second week. I asked Kayla to move my pill organizer closer while I was sitting in the den. She turned to me slowly, narrowed her eyes, and said, "You're not gonna last long if you keep acting helpless." Then she slapped the back of my shoulder. Not hard enough to leave a mark, but hard enough to sting. I gasped. She smiled. "You'll be fine," she said, and walked off. That night I called Rhonda again. I told her exactly what happened. Her voice sounded tired. "Mama, are you sure? You've been having those dizzy spells, and you said your shoulder hurt earlier this week. Maybe it's from the fall last month." "I didn't fall," I said, gripping the phone tighter. "She hit me." "Mama," Rhonda said gently, "you've been paranoid since the stroke. I think we might need to talk to the doctor about adjusting your meds." That broke something inside me. Rhonda didn't mean harm, I knew that. But it's easier to believe a stranger is professional than to admit your own mother might be suffering right under your nose. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. No one was coming to help me. The next day, Kayla served me cold oatmeal and left the tray on my lap for 3 hours. I couldn't get up. My arms cramped. When I finally asked her to take it, she said, "Not my fault, you're too lazy to move." Later that evening, while I sat by the window, she walked by and muttered under her breath, "Old people are just practice corpses." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My voice had gone somewhere I couldn't reach. But I wasn't broken. I was planning. The next morning I waited until she went outside for a smoke. Then I pushed myself down the hall to the room Harold used as his sewing and tools closet. I hadn't opened that drawer in years, but I knew what I was looking for. It was still there. Harold's old handheld tape recorder. I popped in 2 AA batteries from the junk drawer and tested it. The sound was scratchy but clear. I felt something cold and certain settle in my chest. If no one would believe me, I'd make them listen. I started slow. I hid the recorder in a folded towel in the bathroom, behind a curtain rod in the den, under the couch pillow where I sat each evening. Each time Kayla came at me, when she slapped my wrist for talking too slow, when she yanked my walker out of reach so I'd have to crawl to the bathroom, when she hissed that she hoped I'd just fall already, I recorded it. Then I started keeping a notebook. I wrote down the time, the room, the recorder location, and what happened. My handwriting shook. My fingers ached. But every bruise came with a number. Every insult came with a tape. I didn't flinch anymore. I let her believe I was sinking. I let my eyes dull, let my voice weaken. And in that silence she grew bolder. Complacent. One evening she grabbed my chin hard and said, "I could shove you down the stairs and say you tripped. You'd believe it yourself in a week." That one I got clear as day. The hiss, the laugh, the soft thud of her walking away. That night as I sat in the dark, the shoebox under my bed felt like the heaviest thing in the house. It held all the tapes. All the truth. My daughter thought I was confused. My caregiver thought I was helpless. But I was neither. I was just waiting for the right time. A week passed. Then, by now I had over a dozen tapes and a notebook so full the pages curled at the corners. Every time Kayla Sims, the woman my daughter Rhonda had hired to care for me, insulted me, shoved me, or slapped me, I had it. Audio. Dates. Everything. But I needed more than proof. I needed the moment. The moment that would force everyone to see what I already knew. The moment she couldn't talk her way out of. Kayla had grown cocky. Too cocky. He thought I was shrinking. That the way I sat quiet or looked down meant she had won. But really I was listening. Counting steps. Studying rhythms. I knew how long it took her to shower. How she left her phone in the kitchen when she went outside to smoke. I knew she never checked under the sink, and that she always forgot about the baby monitor camera Rhonda installed last year when she thought I might fall getting to the bathroom. I'd covered it with a towel back then. Now I was thinking about plugging it back in. One morning while Kayla was napping in the recliner, yes, my recliner, I made my way to the kitchen. My hip ached, but I moved quiet. I reached for the outlet behind the microwave, slid the cord for the baby monitor into the socket and aimed it across the living room. Then I covered the blinking light with a tiny strip of black tape. She'd never notice. That day she was worse than usual. She threw my lunch plate down so hard the peas bounced off the floor. When I asked her to pick them up, she told me to lick him up like a dog if you want him. Later, when she walked by the hallway, she pushed my walker just enough to send me staggering against the wall. She didn't care if I bruised. She wanted me to bruise. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. My shoulder throbbed where she'd pinched me earlier. But my mind was sharp. My body hurt, but my spirit had flint in it now. I knew I couldn't do this much longer. I was playing weak, but the truth was, I was weak. I needed to act while I still had strength left. The next morning I made her coffee. Just like she liked it. Extra sugar. Little cream. She looked at me sideways and said, "You feeling obedient today?" I smiled. That same brittle smile she used to give Rhonda when she was pretending to be someone else. "Just feeling grateful," I said. She laughed. "Maybe I knocked the sense back into you." Later, when she went outside to talk on her phone, I went straight to the sewing room and pulled the tapes. I loaded the ones from the past week into a little floral makeup bag. Then I tucked the notebook in beside them. Rhonda was coming that afternoon just for a check-in. I hadn't told her to. She said she just felt like stopping by. God must have whispered something. When Rhonda arrived, Kayla switched into performance mode. Smiling. Helpful. She even offered to make tea. Rhonda beamed like a proud parent. "She's been so good with you, hasn't she, Mama?" I didn't respond right away. I looked Kayla in the eye. Her gaze flickered just for a second. "Why don't we sit in the den?" I said. We moved slowly. I waited for Kayla to step away. Then I pulled the makeup bag from behind the throw pillow and handed it to Rhonda. "What's this?" she asked. "Evidence," I said. "Of what?" "Everything you didn't believe." She gave a confused smile. Then opened the bag and pulled out the tapes. "Cassette tapes?" she asked. "And a notebook. Match the times. Play them." Rhonda glanced around. "Where's Kayla?" "On the porch. On the phone. She'll be back in 5 minutes." Rhonda opened the notebook and scanned the top page. The date. The time. Then the words, "Old people are just practice corpses." She froze. "I'm not confused, Rhonda," I said softly. She looked up. Her eyes darted to the hallway, then back to me. "You recorded her?" I nodded. I had to. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then she pulled out her phone and opened the voice memo app. She held a cassette up to her ear, pressed play on the recorder and let the hiss fill the room. Then Kayla's voice came through, clear as a bell. I ought to push you down the stairs and tell your daughter you rolled. Rhonda dropped the recorder like it burned her. Mama, I held up a hand. Don't apologize yet. She's coming back in 3 minutes. What we do next is your decision. Rhonda looked pale. She started pacing. Then she nodded slowly. We'll get the police. You'll be okay. I swear. She can't know. Not yet. I understand. When Kayla came back inside, I was back in my seat. Rhonda smiled tight and thanked her for the tea. They made small talk. Rhonda asked her to go out and grab a few things from the store. Milk, crackers, paper towels. Kayla, still smug and unaware, grabbed her purse and left. The door hadn't even clicked shut before Rhonda picked up her phone and started dialing. Who are you calling? I asked. A detective I know, she said. From work. He's a good man. His name's Lionel Briggs. I exhaled for the first time all day. Because for the first time in weeks I wasn't alone anymore. I was believed. I stopped crying after the second week. Something inside me simply went still. Not numb. Not cold. Just focused. I stopped calling Rhonda every time Kayla shoved me or grabbed my wrist too tight. I stopped begging to be believed. I realized there was no point in pleading with people who were too busy, too comfortable, or too afraid to see the truth right in front of them. That was when the planning began. It started with a memory. A simple one. Me years ago, crouched beside my late husband Harold's feet, watching him rewire a broken cassette recorder in the back room we used as a sewing and tools space. He never liked throwing things away. Everything's useful again if you know where to touch it, he used to say. I remembered where he kept it too. Second drawer on the left, beneath his old work gloves and a rusted pair of wire cutters. That evening, when Kayla stepped out for her usual hour-long walk around the block with her phone glued to her ear, I pushed myself down the hallway, one careful foot at a time. My hip ached. My shoulder was stiff from the bruise she left the day before. But I made it. I opened the drawer and there it was, just like I remembered, small, silver and scuffed from years of use. I pressed the play button. The little wheels spun and hissed. I slid in the batteries from the clock in my bedroom. It worked. I wiped the dust off with an old sock and carried it back to my room like it was gold. Because to me it was. The next morning I waited until she left again. Then I tucked the recorder under a throw pillow in the living room couch. I adjusted the angle to make sure it'd pick up the sound in the room. Then I hit record. My hands trembled but my mind was steady. That afternoon Kayla returned in a mood. I'd moved too slow when she asked for the mail key. She yanked my walker out of reach and said, "You'd be better off in a nursing home where no one has to listen to your whining." I said nothing. Just stared at the corner of the couch where the recorder was hiding. It was catching every word. She became bolder over the next few days. I kept rotating the recorder, behind the sugar canister in the kitchen, in a pot on top of the fridge, inside the pocket of my old cardigan hanging near the hallway. I even stitched a little cloth pouch into the side of the recliner, just big enough to hold the recorder with the mic facing out. And while she shoved and cursed and mocked, I smiled faintly and kept my head down. I let her think I was folding. Let her think the stroke had turned my brain to mush. I mumbled sometimes on purpose. I fumbled the remote or spilled my water just to watch her lose control and scream things no one would ever believe if I told them. But the tape never blinked, never flinched, never doubted me. It recorded every slap, every insult, every threat. By the end of the week I had 5 full tapes. And that's when I started writing. I pulled out an old notebook from the hall closet and wrote each day's events down like clockwork. April 3rd, 2:17 p.m. Slapped left forearm after asking for water. Recorder in recliner. April 5th, 11:42 a.m. Called a worthless lump after refusing to eat soggy toast. Recorder in kitchen cabinet. I kept the entries short, sharp, factual. I didn't cry while I wrote them. I didn't let myself feel anything. That would come later. Right now I was documenting a crime scene. Kayla kept getting worse. Her guard dropped entirely. One afternoon after I asked her not to put bleach near my toothbrush, she leaned over and whispered, "You keep testing me, old woman, and one day you'll slip for real. Don't make me prove it." Her breath smelled like sour coffee. Her eyes were wild. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. I caught that one too. Clear as day. Tape number 7. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed and listened to the recordings in the dark, one by one. Her voice hissed through the speaker, mocking me, demeaning me, laughing. I played the parts where I whimpered and apologized. Then I stopped the tape, rewound it, and played it again, and again, until I knew that even if no one had believed me before, there was no way they could deny me now. But I didn't act yet. I needed one more thing. I needed a final recording. One so blatant, so cruel that even the strongest denier couldn't look away. So I pushed her. I spilled a pitcher of water in the hallway. Let it soak into the carpet. When she saw it, she grabbed my arm and pulled me so hard I nearly hit the floor. You dirty cow, she spat. What the hell is wrong with you? I apologized. Then I did it again the next day. She tripped over a rug I left bunched in the corner. She accused me of doing it on purpose. She shoved me back into my chair hard enough that I winced. He didn't care. I ought to break your damn fingers, she hissed. That was the one. I marked the tape. April 9th, 4:32 p.m. Recorder in cardigan pocket. Threats of physical harm. Intent to injure. I tucked that tape with the rest into an old makeup bag and placed it behind the shoebox in my closet. I slid the notebook in with it. Then I sat down and waited. Rhonda was scheduled to visit the next day. Just to check in. I hadn't told her to. I hadn't said a word about what was coming. But when she walked through the front door holding a tote bag of groceries and talking about the weather, I stopped her. I need you to listen to something, I said. She looked at me sideways. Mama. Please. Listen. I handed her the bag. She opened it. She pulled out the notebook first, then the tapes. What is this? She asked. Everything you didn't believe. She froze. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw her face start to crack. I didn't smile. But I was ready. Rhonda stared at the tapes in her hand like they were foreign objects. Her eyes moved from the notebook to the makeup bag to me, and I could see her throat tighten like she couldn't decide if she should speak or just sit down. I didn't rush her. I let the silence stretch. Let her live in it. Let her realize that every time she said I was confused or paranoid, I was living through hell with a woman she trusted. She finally sat at the edge of the couch, notebook in her lap. You wrote it all down? Every slap. Every threat. Every day. She flipped to the middle. April 6th. Called me a parasite. Threw my tray on the floor. Refused to help me change after I spilled juice. Her fingers started shaking. Play it, I said. Start with the tape labeled April 9th. She fumbled with her phone, pulled up a little plug-in adapter I didn't even know she had, and pushed the tape into the recorder. The wheels turned. Static at first. Then Kayla's voice filled the room, sharp and venomous. You worthless old cow, you leave one more wet towel on the floor and I swear I'll leave you in it all day. You think your daughter's gonna believe you? All I have to do is say you forgot. Then came the sound of a slap. My gasp. The tray clattering. And then, the worst part, me apologizing. Rhonda pressed pause. She looked at me, her face pale. She hit you. Every day. She threatened you. Almost pushed me down the hallway once. Laughed about it. Rhonda's eyes filled. Mama, I didn't know. No, you didn't want to know. I thought it was the stroke. The confusion. She used that. She counted on it. Rhonda didn't argue. She closed her eyes, took a breath, then picked up her phone and stood. Who are you calling? I told you yesterday. I know someone. From the Community Safety Board. He's a detective. Lionel Briggs. If you're ready to do something about this, I'm not wasting another second. I'm ready, I said. Rhonda stepped into the kitchen. I heard her voice steady but fierce. Heard her say the words I'd been desperate to hear for weeks. Elder abuse, evidence, in-home caregiver. Then she gave our address. An hour later she came back into the living room. He's coming tonight. He's bringing a unit with him. Kayla wasn't due back until morning. Thank God. We had time to prepare. Rhonda spent the rest of the afternoon helping me collect everything. She photocopied every page of my notebook, then sorted the tapes by date and labeled them with neat little stickers from my sewing box. She apologized between each task. I should have listened. I should have known. I'll never leave you alone again. I let her say what she needed to say. But I didn't tell her it was okay. Because it wasn't. The scars on my arms weren't okay. The bruises on my hip weren't okay. The fear I'd felt when my walker was yanked away, that wasn't something you just apologize for. She made a pot of soup for dinner. Sat beside me while we ate. She flinched every time I winced or reached for my tea with my sore arm. When the doorbell rang just before 8, she was already standing. Detective Briggs was calm, composed, and serious. He introduced himself with a firm handshake and a respectful nod. A younger officer stood beside him holding a small box and a notepad. "Mrs. Moore," Detective Briggs said, "I understand you have recordings of a caregiver who's been abusing you?" I nodded. "I have tapes. And a log. She's been hurting me for weeks. We're here to collect everything. And to document your injuries. If that's all right with you." "It is." Rhonda handed over the bag, the notebook, and the copies. The detective's partner placed each item into a labeled evidence folder. "Do you have visible injuries we can photograph?" Briggs asked gently. I pulled back the sleeve of my cardigan. The bruise on my forearm had turned yellow at the edges. I stood slowly, turned, and lifted the back of my shirt slightly to show the deep purple across my shoulder blade. He didn't gasp, didn't recoil, just nodded. "Thank you," he said. "We'll submit this to the district attorney first thing tomorrow." "What happens next?" I asked. "If she's at the home tomorrow, we'll arrest her on site. If not, we'll pick her up from wherever she's staying. These tapes and notes, if they match what you've described, they're more than enough for a criminal case." Rhonda looked at me, eyes wide with guilt and disbelief. "I want her gone," I said. "I want her never to step foot in this house again." "She won't," Briggs said firmly. "Not if I have anything to do with it." After they left, Rhonda curled up on the recliner and stayed the night. Neither of us slept much. Every noise made me tense. Every creak in the floor sounded like her shoes. But Kayla never came. The next morning, just after sunrise, Rhonda got the call. The police had found Kayla entering another client's home. Early shift, different neighborhood. They arrested her on the porch. "You're safe," Rhonda said, hanging up. I nodded. "No. Now I'm safe." I walked through my house slowly that morning, breathing in the silence. The real kind. Not the silence of fear, but the kind that hums after the storm passes. She was gone. And this time no one would doubt me again. The morning after Kayla's arrest, I woke up to the smell of fresh toast. Real toast. Not the half-burned slices she used to toss on a paper towel and drop into my lap like dog food. Rhonda was in the kitchen humming something low and familiar, and for the first time in weeks, my house didn't feel like a prison. She brought me breakfast on a real plate, not a tray. She set it down gently on the table beside me and helped me ease into the chair with the padded cushion I used to love before the bruises made it unbearable. "I didn't sleep much," she said. "Kept thinking about how I let this go on." I didn't answer. I just picked up my fork. The silence was my answer. Detective Lionel Briggs called around noon. He told us Kayla had been formally charged with multiple counts of elder abuse and unlawful neglect. "We're pushing for an expedited hearing," he said. "The evidence you provided is overwhelming. I just wanted to say you did the right thing, Mrs. Moore." "I did the only thing I could," I told him. After the call, Rhonda sat on the couch beside me. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes red. "I've been going over everything in my head. The calls you made. The things you said. I ignored all of it." I looked at her for a long time before I spoke. "You didn't believe me because it was easier not to." She winced. "That's fair. It wasn't about hate. It was about comfort. You needed to believe you made a good decision. So you believed the woman you hired instead of the one who raised you." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't try to defend herself this time. She just nodded. "I can't undo what happened," she said, "but I can start fixing it. I already found a replacement caregiver. Someone certified through the hospital. Background checked. She starts Monday. And I'll be staying over twice a week no matter what." "You sure you can do all that?" I asked. "I have to," she said. "I will." That weekend, Rhonda and her teenage son Malcolm came by and installed cameras in every shared space of the house. Kitchen, living room, hallway, and outside the front door. She didn't ask if it was okay. He just did it. And for once I didn't feel watched. I felt protected. Sunday afternoon I sat in my bedroom and took out the notebook again. Not to write more abuse, but to tear out every single page. Every bruise I logged. Every insult. Every hour of cruelty. I ripped them up one by one and dropped them into the trash. I didn't need them anymore. Rhonda came in and saw what I was doing. You sure? Very. I didn't need the tapes either. The police had copies. The DA had everything. I didn't want to hear her voice ever again. The next morning my new caregiver arrived. Her name was Naomi. Mid-50s. Gentle hands. Clear eyes. She spoke to me with respect and didn't flinch when I asked direct questions. Do you yell when you're frustrated? I asked her. She smiled and said, No ma'am, I just breathe slower. I liked her immediately. She helped me organize my medication, adjusted my walker handles to ease the strain on my wrists, and made tea with honey instead of sugar, just like I asked. She didn't act like she was doing me a favor. She acted like she worked for me. As she did. Detective Briggs called again that evening. The DA is adding a request for restitution, he said. If the judge agrees, you'll be eligible for compensation from Kayla's agency, especially since your daughter hired her based on their referral. I don't care about money, I said. I care about making sure she never gets to do this again. You've already made sure of that. Even if she gets probation, her license is gone. Permanently. Thanked him, not just for the update, but for believing me the moment he walked into the house. That night I walked slowly into the kitchen. No help. Just my walker and my own rhythm. I opened the fridge, poured myself a glass of juice and stood there for a full minute. I was in my home. And I was free. But freedom comes with shadows. I still flinched when Naomi moved too quickly. Still hesitated when someone raised their voice on TV. Still checked the locks twice at night. Rhonda saw it too. You want me to stay again tonight? No, I said. But thank you. I needed to sit in this space by myself. Not to suffer, but to own it. I ran my hand across the kitchen table. The same one where I used to eat while Kayla stood over me chewing gum and texting. The same one she banged her purse on when she was angry. The same one she leaned on when she told me no one would ever believe a senile old woman like me. He was wrong. They believed me. Not at first. But when they heard me, really heard me, they couldn't unhear it. And now her name was in the system. Her face was on a mugshot. And I was still here, stirring my tea in the house I paid for, with the walls she tried to turn into a cage. She was gone. And I had my voice back. 3 months later, I sat in a wooden bench in the back of a quiet courtroom, watching Kayla Sims stand before the judge in handcuffs. She wore the same bland county-issued shirt I'd seen in the news, her hair pulled back tightly, her expression flat. Gone was the woman who used to smirk down at me as she hurled my plate to the floor. Gone was the voice that whispered threats in the hallway, that yanked my walker, that told me no one would believe me. All that was left now was silence. She didn't fight the charges. She didn't speak. Her attorney did all the talking, murmuring phrases like first-time offense and emotional pressure, but the evidence was too strong. The judge handed down the sentence without hesitation. 5 years. Suspended license. Permanent placement on the state elder abuse registry. No contact with the victim. No employment in any care-related capacity again. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you," to no one in particular. Afterward, Rhonda took my hand and helped me down the courthouse steps. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm not broken," I said. "Just different now." 2 weeks later, we got a letter from the agency that had referred Kayla. They were settling out of court to avoid a larger suit. My home would be fully renovated for accessibility. New floors, widened doorways, a walk-in tub, railings on the porch. Everything paid for. It wouldn't erase what happened. But it meant I wouldn't have to live with old injuries in an old house that didn't fit me anymore. I started sleeping better. Not always, but better. Naomi stayed on as my caregiver, and her calm presence gave the house a new rhythm. She spoke softly, asked permission before touching anything, and made a point to tell me what she was doing. Every step, every time. "I'm just adjusting your pillow, Ms. Moore," she'd say. Or, "Would you like me to sit with you a while?" I always said yes. But the quiet I loved most came in the afternoons. That's when I started speaking again. Not just to Naomi or Rhonda, but to others. Rhonda signed us up to speak at a local elder care awareness event. I was hesitant at first. What would I say? What if no one believed me again? But then I stood in front of that room, half full of adult children, caregivers, and a few women in wheelchairs, and I told my story. I told them about the bruises, the silence, the dismissals, the tape recorder. The night I stopped begging to be believed and started collecting proof. I watched eyes widen. I saw tears fall. I heard gasps when I said the words. She told me she could push me down the stairs and say I slipped. After the event, a woman approached me with shaking hands. My mama's going through the same thing, she said. She keeps saying her nurse is cruel. We thought maybe it was the dementia. Believe her, I said. Even if she stumbles over the words. Believe her. That night, I sat on my front porch with a cup of tea and a small blanket draped over my legs. Rhonda sat beside me quiet. She didn't talk as much anymore. She'd learned that sometimes silence said more. I never thought we'd be here, she whispered. 3 months ago I thought you were just struggling. I'm sorry it took me so long to see. I'm not angry anymore, I said. But I won't forget. She nodded. We sat like that for a long while, watching the street, listening to the wind. Later that week, the renovation crews came and fitted the bathroom with a rail. They repainted the hallway. They even replaced the cracked kitchen tile that had made me slip once during Kayla's shifts. When the work was done, Naomi helped me back into the living room. I looked around, breathing in the scent of fresh paint, of new beginnings. This feels like mine again, I said. It always was, Naomi replied. That evening Rhonda gave me a surprise. She'd framed a quote and placed it on the hallway wall. She let them think she was helpless, until the silence started speaking for her. I didn't cry, but my chest warmed in a way I hadn't felt in years. Now every week I meet with a group of women at the senior center. We talk about the things no one wants to say out loud: neglect, bruises, fear. And more I see women coming in not just to talk, but to take notes, to act. And every time I tell my story, I remember the first night I turned on that recorder. How scared I was. How desperate. But not anymore. Because now my story lives outside of me. It lives in the courtroom records. In the settlement. In the memory of that tape is followed by the sound of my own small voice saying, stop. One evening after a group meeting, I returned home and turned off all the lights. I sat in my recliner, the same one where I used to pray no one would hit me again, and listened. There were no footsteps. No curses. No threats. Only the hum of my refrigerator. The distant chirp of crickets. And the deep, long silence I had earned. Not empty. Not afraid. Just peace.